This week we start the last Sefer of the Torah, Sefer Devarim, and it starts off with the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe, with the beginning of his journey as leader, was not a man of words. Now all of a sudden it starts off, Ele haDevarim asher diber Moshe el ko Yisrael be'ever Yarden. These are the words that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the whole Jewish people on the Ever HaYarden, right on the border of the Jordan River in the Midbar, right before we enter the land of Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu knows that he's dying soon. Moshe Rabbeinu knows he's not going to make it in the land of Israel, so he's going to try to give us his last words of advice, of musar, of tochacha, of inspiration, of fear, to get us on the right path of Hashem, so we could conquer the land of Israel with the right mitzvot, with the right midot, with the right emunah, and we're going to do the right thing, not mess up like we did 38 years earlier with the spies, but do it right. And these are his last words. And Moshe Rabbeinu starts off the parasha by going through the history up until this point. And similar to last week's parasha, in a certain sense, where we had the Masaot, the journeys of the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu goes through the journeys, but now he gives with a little more of his commentary, explaining as he goes through. So I was listening to a Dvar Torah this week from a rabbi from Toronto, Rabbi Ziering, his nice Torah online. He quoted another rabbi, a big Tanakh rabbi, Rav Yoel Ben Nun, a big rabbi over here in Eretz Yisrael, who's known for his Tanakh insights, who he had an insight that I thought was so different than anything I've ever thought of. He went through the parasha, he went through the different psukim, and he goes through all the different places that Moshe went along, that the Jewish people went along the way Moshe retells it, and the whole path that we took as we left Egypt and we got up to Kadesh Barnea, the border, the bottom of the Eretz Yisrael, and then we have to go through Sin, we have to turn around, and we go around Moab, we go around Ammon, and we come in now around the east, up to the north, above the Jordan River, and we're going to cross now over in the north side of the Jordan. And he goes through all the places that Moshe Rabbeinu speaks, and he says, wow, we've seen these places before. Not only in the book of Bamidbar, but we saw it much earlier in the Torah, in a similar kind of way. And where do we find it? And this is what I thought was unbelievable. You go back to the book of Bereshit, Parashat Lech Lecha, Perek Yudalid, and we have this story in the Torah that most of us kind of skip over. It's the story of the 4 kings and the 5 kings. Now, Lech Lecha is a jam-packed parasha where Hashem chooses Avraham Avinu to be his person, be Avraham, and it goes through the whole beginnings of his life, of his life story with him and Sarah and moving around in Egypt. And there's like one story in the middle over there, which there's this it's like a side history story. It's a war of 4 kings and 5 kings. That there were these 4 kings who were very powerful. This is Perek Yudalid. V'hi b'mei Amrafel melech Shinar, Aryoch melech Alasar, Kedar Omer melech Elam, V'tid'al melech Goyim. These were strong kings who were in charge of land, not in actually the land of Israel, but they come from the northeast. They come from the area of Persia, of Iran. Kedar Omer comes from Elam, which would be Persian area, Shushan, and I guess the Iraq area. But there's 4 kings that are coming from Mesopotamia. And they make a journey down south to the land of Israel to start conquering the land. And they come all the way down, and they conquer the whole territory of Eretz Yisrael, and they conquer the whole territory to the east of the Jordan and to the south of it, and they make this long, long journey down and conquer this whole area of land. And if you look at the names of the places where they were, so we have the places that we see in our parsha. They're gonna get down to the area of Kadesh. They're gonna have the northern areas of the Emori. We're going to have the areas by the Yam Melech of Sodom. We're going to have Elonei Mamre. We're going to have the Ashtenot Karnaim. We're going to have the whole area from the. So now they're coming from Iran, Iraq area. So they're going to come from the north. So they're going to come from the north down south, and they're going to have this whole big journey, come down south towards the east of the Jordan, conquer their whole area, conquer basically most of the world, and then the living world at this point, civilization. Then they're going to come back up through Eretz Canaan and conquer all that land as well, and they're going to rule for a while until eventually the kings are going to rebel against them, and in that rebellion, the 5 kings that rebel are going to lose because the 4 kings, Kedar Omer is very strong. He's going to come down. He's going to win this whole war. They're going to take Lot captive. And that's where we look at the story in Lech Lecha, because Avraham goes with his military, it's actually small military. I had a couple hundred people with him, and he's going to go and he's going to now fight back and conquer them. So that little army of Avraham is going to defeat the 4 kings after the 4 kings took the 5 kings and their people captive, including Lot. And that's how we relate to that story. But if you actually look at the parasha, look at Perek Yudalid, There are a lot more words there. It's like, it goes through this whole story of all these places that they conquer. And then, just a little section of Avraham coming with this 318 minutes, like a tiny section where Avraham goes back, conquers them, and brings Lot back. But the question is, why that whole long side story? It starts off the first, like 10 Pesukim is just these kings fighting each other. This whole side war, side history lesson. Why is that important to know about these 5 kings fighting against 4 kings and these little wars taking place? What's happening over here? Then if we keep looking at that story, right after it ends, the king of Sodom comes to Avraham, and he's thanking Avraham, and he says, Avraham, listen, I know you said you just want everything. Can I get my stuff back? You can keep the people. Can I get my stuff back? And in between that, Malchi Tzedek, the Melech of Shalem, another king comes to Avraham, and they make peace with each other. They have a nice seudah with each other, and they bless. And somebody blesses somebody over there, and there's Maser given over there. There's this whole story of one king and a second king, and then Avraham goes to Sodom. I don't want any of your stuff. I don't want you to ever say that I became rich because of you. Take your stuff. Take your people. I want nothing. So what's that story all about? So here's the idea that I heard, which I thought was unbelievable. So those 4 kings were, when they conquered the 5 kings, you basically had these rulers coming from Iraq, Iran, Mesopotamia area, and they conquer everything around the land of Israel. The east of the Jordan, the west of the Jordan, Eretz Canaan, the stuff on the east, they conquer everything. When they conquer everything, so what are they? They're the ultimate rulers. They're the melech over everything. Now, when the 5 kings rebel and they lose and the 4 kings re-win, so the 4 kings again are rulers over everything until Avraham defeats them. Once Avraham defeats them, so who's the new ruler over Eretz Israel, the west of the Jordan, the east of the Jordan, this whole area? The new ruler becomes Avraham Avinu. Avraham is now the king of everything. So that's why Malchi Tzedek is coming up to him and trying to make peace with him and blessing him. And that's why the king of Sodom is saying, listen, I know you're the main guy in charge. Can I just please get my stuff back? Can I please, And yet Avraham says no to everything. Why does Avraham say no to everything? So the very next parak Tedvav, it's back in Breshit. Right after that, God speaks to Avraham in a vision, and we have the Brit Ben Abetarim. We have the famous covenant with God, where God, a covenant with Avraham and God, where God says to Avraham, I pick you, you're going to be the leader of the nation, you're going to have a people, you're going to have children like the stars of the skies, you're not going to be able to count them, and you're going to have this land over here that I'm going to give you. And Avraham, in this conversation says to God, he goes, Hashem, you didn't give me any children, what am I going to do? And that's why God blesses him to have children. So from here it says, Rav Yoel ben Nun, why did Avraham choose not to be ruler over everything? Because Avraham realized it wasn't going to last. Because Avraham realized that it wasn't the plan of God. Right now, he doesn't have any children. He has one nephew, Lot, over here, but Avraham realized once Lot went to Sodom, this is not the right guy, this is not going to be the future of the Jewish people, and he cries to God, what's going to be with me? And how am I going to know everything's going to be true? I don't have children. And that's when God makes the deal with him. Brit Ben Abetarim. You're going to have kids like the stars. You're going to be a great nation. You're going to have this land. But you should also know it's going to come at a cost of 400 years of slavery, and it's going to be difficult, and it's not yours just yet. And Avraham knew before this Brit that the land wasn't going to be his. That's why he didn't take it. But now Hashem says, don't worry, you made the right choice. You're going to get this land of Israel. And actually, you're going to get this whole land that you conquered, which is not just the land of Israel on the west of the Jordan, it's also the east side of the Jordan. And that's what takes us back to our parasha. What is our parasha? Our parasha is the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, coming back from Egypt. We're now a whole nation. We are those stars. And now we're coming back to conquer the land, to get that land that God had promised to Avraham and the Brit Ben Abetarim. That same places, and it's all the exact places that those kings conquered. It's the same names of the same places, back in Kadesh, in the north, in the south. So we're wondering, why did the Jewish people make this whole funny journey that we went to the east? Why don't we just go straight up? Oh, we sinned with the spies. But no, we said in a previous recording, this is part of the bigger plan. Because part of the land that's owed to us is not just Eretz Canaan, the land to the west, to the east of the Jordan, to the west of the Jordan, but also the land to the east. The part of Bnei Reuven, the Bnei Gad, the stuff we spoke about in last week's parasha. All that stuff in the east was also conquered by Avraham when he won it in that fight, in that war. It just wasn't time to get it yet. And that's also why when Moshe is going around, Moshe tells us, God told me, okay, you're not allowed to conquer the land of Edom, because that's Esav. That's his land that he gets as an inheritance from Avraham. Because when Avraham was given all this land from God, part of it goes to us, to the Jewish people, but another part goes to Avraham's other family. So the part of Edom, Moshe says, God told us don't conquer. That's Esav's land, Har Seir. Then we have the parts of the Bnei Ammon and the Bnei Moab. Those are the kids of Lot. That part we don't take either. That stays to them. That's also part of Avram's family. That's part of the Yerusha. But the other part on top, with the Emori, this area on top with Sichon and with Og, that part, that's Canaanite nations. That stuff you guys can't conquer. And that part to the east of the Jordan that we conquered, and which becomes Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, that's part of the land that Avram also conquered, and that wasn't. And the rest of Avram's family, of Esav and Ammon and Moab, they don't have it now. Maybe they had it at one point and got conquered by other people, but now they don't have it anymore. Now you can conquer that, and ultimately this is going to set us up to conquer the last part, Eretz Canaan, and this is just the setup to get to the full inheritance. So all the land that Avram conquered with his 318 men, and that war that Avraham fought that we skip over, because we always think of Avraham, we focus on the midot of Avraham. That's really what a Jew is all about. But there was a war, and that physical war that Avraham won, that land we're conquering now as a nation, spiritually, after we have the Brit Ben Abitarim, where God said it's supposed to be ours, so we can do it physically and spiritually, and realize the vision that Avraham knew was going to happen after this promise. Shabbat Shalom.